Hello, hello for same. How are you all? I'm missing you guys. So anyway, today I'm going to discuss about John Barth's The Literature of Exhaustion, which I've already started in the class. So I'm going to analyze a little bit so that you can understand better. So I'm going to send this video in two part because this is long. So let's discuss about it. So at the very beginning, like John Barth sets out to discuss three things in the essay. Already I've said you in the class. The first is some old questions raised by the intermedia arts. Now you all know what is the meaning of intermedia arts. That means which has got well connected with everything like painting, sculpture, like wood carving, etc. etc. And the secondly is that talking about some aspects of the Argentinian writer J.L. Borges, whom he admires very much. And thirdly, he is going to say about to discuss what he calls the literature of exhausted possibilities, or you can say the literature of exhaustion. So I'm going to clarify you in a very simple way so that you understand better. Look, he is not concerned with the subject of physical, moral, or intellectual decadence by exhaustion. He means the used upness or exertion of certain forms or possibilities in literature. That means he's talking about certain forms and possibilities in literature. Not talking about the, you can say, the physical, moral, or intellectual, etc., etc. No, he's not talking about those things. However, he maintains that this is no cause for despair. Nobody should get despair about it. He is aware that Western artists, he is well known, he is well aware, Western artists have followed the tradition of rebelling against tradition as witnessed in the field of pop art, you can say, dramatic and musical happenings. The whole range of intermedia or mixed, you can say, means art. He cites example of Robert Felius. Now Robert Felius is a French artist, you all know that. Like Robert Felius, Ample Food for Stupid Thought. He has written and discussed about in a very good way. And Ray Johnson's, that he is an American artist as well as also a playwright. And Ray Johnson's A Paper Snake and Daniel Sporres. Daniel Sporres is a Swiss artist, a Swiss writer. Now, these things has been described here that an interesting and lively to read and are discussed about in fiction writing. Classes because of their novelty in presenting them. These writings are the classic writer, especially because of their novelty, you know. It is easier to discuss about technique than to create works of art. Now he's saying that to discuss about technique, what does technique means here? Like the above mentioned, intermedia arts exhibit one common tendency to eliminate the traditional audience. That means got to like intermedia art exhibit one common tendency to eliminate. That means they got to eliminate the traditional audience and the traditional, what you say, notion of the artist. That means they got to reject the traditional notion of the artist. Like the Aristotelian concept, we know it is all traditional. The Aristotelian concept of the conscious artist is held as an aristocratic notion, which the democratic West condemns as politically reactionary and at times fascist. Now, however, like John Barth chooses to be a rebel along traditional lines and prefers art that requires expertise, artistry along with aesthetic ideas and or inspiration. You know, there should be an aesthetic ideas and there should be for inspiration for the budding or the coming writer. Therefore, he is more impressed by the acts of juggler and acrobats. You know, the juggler that they do juggling and the acrobats, that means who does the sort of like gymnasium and all in the circus and all. Then the pop music in the Albright Knox collections, which he considers them to be of genuine virtuous who actually performed acts that other could only dream or discuss about. Now see, the writers, the writers, if we are having a writers of the present generation, then in the next generation we can have a writer like similar, okay, something different. But the work of the juggler or the architects, it's very tough to do for all the people, okay, and it's very much risky. So he's talking about that, and he appreciates the juggler and also to the acrobats. Now he believes that a distinction ought to be made between things ought remarking and things ought doing. Like sometimes we remark that this person has written this person, and we criticize a lot according to their work. But the thing is that what we were doing, what I am doing, that is the thing. That means ought remarking and things ought doing. That means you have to do or I have to do. That means only remarking and criticizing or mockery is not going to help. That means we should write something new. But agrees with Saul Bellow's opinion that a writer technical knowledge is his least important quality. And he's talking about technical knowledge is the least important quality. Now why is saying that technical knowledge is the least important quality? However, it is essential as art and its forms and techniques are subject to change. Now see, note technique is very much important in writing something, but the thing is that technique changes with the passing of time. That means a technique becomes outdated. Suppose you are using a technique like that same technique 50 years which had been used before, and the same technique which you are using at now, that means the present technique is totally outdated. You have to give a new technique to it. But technique is important in writing something, and it should be something new. Next, being technically out of date is a genuine defect, you can say. Technically out of date is a genuine defect. If Beethoven's sixth, giving some example, if Beethoven's sixth symphony or the Cartwright's cathedral were to be executed today, it would be embarrassing instead of awe-inspiring. Now, I'll give a simple example, like the music, which was during the 50s and the 60s. Now the present generation, the youth of the present generation, they may not like it because the music and the rhythm and the lyric was totally different like 50 or 60 years back, and the today is totally different. So that technically you should be dated. If you be outdated, so your work is not going to get any type of name and fame according to birth. Like this is why some contemporary writers work are uninteresting. Like so for this reason, some of the contemporary writer, their works are uninteresting because they use the same old technique as used before. But then like again he says that like works are interesting to birth and the technically up to date, like some of the writers, they're technically out of date. Just you can say like James Joyce is and French Kafka or Samuel Beckett, or you can say he's talking about the J.L. Borges, who is talking, he is a fan of John Burt. So this new writer, or you can say the James Joyce, French Kafka and Samuel Beckett, they have given a new technique. As we all know, the Samuel Beckett is very much famous for his abstract drama, especially the Waiting for Godot. Okay, so that was a new technique used by him, and the people followed it and they liked it. It was a tough time to get, like, to introduce near the audience or on the stage. It was very much tough to get a new fame and popularity, but they tried it and they got the success. Now, the intermediate art we are talking about, the intermediate arts tend to be intermediary too, as they stand between the traditional realms of aesthetics and artistic creation. Accordingly, Bart believes that the wise artist or non-professional, you see, wise artist or non-professional would not view such art with seriousness. Suppose if you are a non-professional artist, that means you are not going to follow the technical, in the sense of technical point of view, because you feel to write something because you're non-professional. But the professional writers, they must look after the technical point of view, otherwise their work will be outdated and the people, they will not be eager to go through it. Yet he will listen to it and view it carefully, though in the non-committal attitude, as much art might suggest something that can be unusable in the making or understanding of genuine works of art. So again he's saying, talking about the professional and the non-professional artist, like suppose I am a professional artist because I got to earn something through my writings, so I have to use all the techniques, that means the dated technique which the people want at the present generation. But if I use the technique which has been used like 40-30 years before, so definitely my work is not going to get popular. People, they will not like to read through it. So again, he's talking about like J.L. Borges in The Perfect Artist to illustrate the difference between the technical and old-fashioned artist. So he's saying that J.L. Borges is the perfect person who can define or you can differentiate between a technical old-fashioned artist, a technically up-to-date civilian, and a technical up-to-date artist. That means he is the person who can bring a comparison between a technical and a non-technical, you can say. Two-thirds of the writing fraternity may be included in the first category of out-of-date writers as they follow. Like there are some writers who are out of date. And in some of the categories, you can say there are best writers, especially the Russian writers. You can say Tolstoy, Flaubert, and Balzac. Okay, now they follow, but believes that it is appropriate to search for successors beyond such writers who have written after technically abstract writers like Joyce and Kafka, French Kafka I'm talking about, as they have already reached the evening of their careers. Now these writers, as they have, especially you know that very well that James Joyce is very much famous for his technique, stream of consciousness technique, and he became very much famous for it. And they have reached the you can say the evening of their careers. But the new writers, what they are going to do? That means they have to use a new technique where they can go or where they can reach the career. That means the evening of their careers. So, and for that reason, technique is very much important in writing. That means the dated technique is very much important in writing anything. Hence, Bart suggests that present-day writers are unaware of the strides that literature had already taken. Bart places all such people in the second category. So the people who don't understand how to write, how to use literature, that means he kept them in the second category, as they believe that they are artists when they use unconventional methods to create unconventional, you see, so-called works of art. Now, in the third category, he places a few people like Beckett and Borges. You see, Beckett and Borges, whose artistic thoughts come across eloquently and memorably to our still human hearts and conditions. As because if you go through like Waiting for God of Samuel Beckett, that's a drama, then only you'll come to know how beautifully it has been written. And that the great artists have always done. Beckett and Borges are such two artists comparable to the old matters of 20th century fiction. Even though literary awards tend to be unexciting, the 1961, you can say, International Publishers Prize to Beckett and Borges was a happy exception. So today, this much is for today. So in the next video, I am going to send you the other part. Thank you. Stay fine, stay happy, stay at home.